All right, so in this lesson, we're going to learn how to change the way a plot looks by showing you a couple different things. First of all, we'll do multiple graphs on one chart. So that'll be the topic of the first lesson here. The second one, we're going to be talking about how to use annotate and text. So we'll do those two things in matplotlib. So in other words, using data to sort of point at things and sort of pull things out of plots. And the last thing is we're going to basically show you how to customize a chart to make it look however you want it to look. So that's the idea behind this lesson. So I'm going to turn my monitor off, or my camera off, so I don't like looking at my whole thing here. But hopefully you can see the code over here on the right. So let me turn that off. Okay, so here's the code. So as you can see, lesson 21, matplotlib, some features on it, multiple charts, labeling, customizing, all this kind of stuff. Okay, so plt.style.use allows you to use one of the ways of that matplotlib. I forget exactly how many different styles there are, but it allows you to use a style that's already sort of been created. So let's import things. I'm going to use these X values in a bunch of different charts down there just to kind of show you what they look like. And then the first thing we're going to show you is what's called an inset. So maybe you have a chart that's like inset inside of another chart. So sometimes you might want to do something like this. And if that's the case, then sort of here's how you do it. So let me put in some ax1.plot. So all you do in order to use this is say, all right, so the ax1 must be the big thing here. So ax1 dot plot. I was going to use a scatter plot. Let me see if I have a scatter plot around here somewhere. Here goes one. So scatter, and I'm going to just grab this sucker and just paste it right up in here. Control V. And then, so this scatter plot with these random points between 0 and 10 and -5 and 5, so that's your X values and these are Y values, and they're orange, is going to be in the big giant, or in the outer figure, if you will. And these sub charts are going to be AX2. I don't know, let's go plot. So again, it's just like you've seen before. I could do histogram, plot, bar, whatever I wanted to do. So we'll do plot, and we'll do np dot sin of x, and then I'm going to put in the third one, and I forget which one. So AX2 must be that guy because it's 0.65, 0.6. You might have to play around with this in order to get whatever it is you're looking for. So AX2.plot, so AX3.plot, and then we'll put np.cosine x. So let's highlight this, see what happens. So as you can see, we got the scatter plot on the outside, and I think I put 10 points in there, but you can probably only see a couple because there's probably some behind these. And then you can see the MP. Let's turn this one red. Color equals red, just so you can kind of see which one. So AX2 is this guy up here, and AX2 is 0.65, 0.65, 0.2, and 0.2. And I believe the way this is this is the bottom left, and this is how much in that direction you're going. So this 0.65 is, so 0.65 on the 65% of the way over and 65% on the way up, and then go over 0.2 and 0.2 so that it doesn't kind of go off here. I believe that's how that's written. And this one starts at 0.2, 0.2 and goes over the same. It goes delta X and delta Y are both the same. So that's how I believe it is. Again, you can look that up. I'm not, when I create them, I just kind of figure out what I want it to look like. Okay, so that's how you do it, sort of a graph inside a graph. Let's see, plot number 2 here. So if you look at this one, you see okay, so in this one we put AX1. So I got 2 charts here, one on top of the other one, and it looks like we're sharing the x-axis. So it might be one of the ones, and I sort of got up here what I want to have written. Let's change this to be, let's see, 0.1, 0.5. Let's change this to 0.6. See what happens. You can see that I separated the two then. And then the 0.8 is how far over you're going, and the 0.4 is how far up you're going. So let's change the y limit here to be negative 1.2 is fine, but maybe go up to 10 and see what that looks like. And you can see, so all it did was it took the y limit for the top. So this is the top graph. It took it and made it go all the way to 10. And then you can, I don't know, color equals orange. All right, so you see kind of how that's working. See, is there anything else that we wanted to do? I changed the y limit, I changed the color. We go for 0.5. Okay, so you can see a little bit how that works, right? I can have different y limits and still share the same axes, or I'm sorry, the x-axis. Okay, let's see what happens with plot number 3 here. So plot number 3 starts off as it's kind of tight in here. So you can see this 20,000 on this chart, right? Because it's an exponential. So if you go back to it, what you're doing is you're creating subplots. I'm creating 2 rows of subplots and 3 columns of subplots. And then the way that you access them is this will be row 0, column 1. So row 0, column 1, row 0. So this is column 0. This would be 0, 0. So that's why you got a bar chart in there. But 0, 1 would be this one. And then what I did was I put 2 different plots in there, right? So you can put as many different lines or slash plots that you want inside there. And then you can see the purple ones at position row 1, column 2. So 0, 1, 2. So it would be that guy right there. And it looks like none of the axes are sharing, right? So I have a different x-axis and a different y-axis for each one of these. So let's go with a fig. So change the fig dot. Oh, yeah. So we're going to first thing we're going to do is fix this. So I'm going to put that down here, and all this fig dot subplots adjust does is it's going to change the amount of space that I have inside each one of these. So let's see what that does first. Get rid of this thing. And hopefully what you see is the fact that it moved these over so that they're not on top of each other. So this 20,000 no longer is inside the other plot over here. So again, you wouldn't want to have 6 of these things if you only had 3 things of data, but I just wanted to show you how to do that, right? So I could put a plot in here if I wanted to. I just didn't this time. All right, so let's see. And if you don't like the size of them, right? Because what happened was when it sort of takes up a little bit of the space. You can kind of see this chart was a little bit bigger than this one, and so that H space and that W space kind of takes up a little bit of that. If you want to change that, you can put fig size equals to, and you can see it there. I got 10.4. Kind of see what happens. And so now let me move this over, and you can see it's a little bit bigger. So I think it's doing what we want it to do. We want these to be a little bit bigger, and I want the space in between each one of these. All right. So another way to do this is to share. So you can see the share. So let's press F9. You can see these are kind of tight, but if I share the row and the column, in other words, I'm not too concerned that this X is not the same as that X, and these Y's are not all the same. If you can do that, then you can probably get away with having a smaller graph. Let's find out what happens here. And as you can see, yep. So as you can see, what happens is so all of these charts share the same y-axis. And what it did was it went to the biggest one, right? So this is the one that went all the way up to 10, and it forced this one to go up to 10 as well. And then you can see there's like a -1 in there as well. And then this one goes all the way up to 20,000. So if these were so small that they couldn't compete with this 20,000, you'd have to do something with the x limit, y limit. Okay, but you can kind of get it on a smaller graph. And so far, all of these multiple subplots that we've looked at so far, all of your plots, so all of these little graphs here, all had the same size. So they had the same dimension. So that's what I said, talk about here. They have the same size, but we don't necessarily have to do that. So let's do this thing called grid spec. And so what grid spec does is it creates a grid of 2 by 3. So there's 2 rows and 3 columns. And then what you can do is you can go in and say, well, I want AX0 to be at grid 0, 0. So what is that? It just goes and says, all right, the AX0 is going to be right here. And then the next one, this AX1 says, hey, plt.subplot, I want to take up grid, so I want to take row 0 and then 1 all the way to the end. So it's going to be 1 and 2. So it's going to be so this one's too long. And then I just put a bar graph in there. So I put a couple things. I put a bar graph and a sine wave as well. So you can see sort of what happens when you do that. And then AX2 is going to be row 1 and then everything up to 2. So remember this n-1 here, so it's 0 and 1. You can kind of see I wrote it right here. So it's row 1, column 0, column 1. So row 1, column 0, column 1. And then you can see the only thing that I have left over is 1, 1, or is that 2, 2? 2, 2. Oh, I'm sorry. 1, 2. So row 1, column 2, 0, 1, 2. So grids 1, 2, and then I put a random np.random normal. So a random 210 histogram in there. You can see AX3, and then we showed it. What if I wanted to create some space? We could do that as well. So if I wanted to create space in there, we would simply do the same thing or I'm sorry, not the same thing, but inside your grid spec, you would just tell it W space. I'm just going to copy paste. Control V. So inside here, you can actually use that command. And you can see there's some space in there. You might not be able to see the space very well, but let me really make it dramatic. Instead of W space being 0.4, we'll do we'll make it dramatic, 0.8 and 0.7. So see what that looks like. Yeah, so now you can see that there's some space in it. So that's where that little column, where that little grid's at, but I got a bunch of space in there before the next one starts. And I got a bunch of space in there and a bunch of space there. Okay, well, that's all I got, guys. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. I will see you next video, I guess, or I'll talk to you next video.